the new admissions financial aid building is open, when they will hopefully be hosting them there in their new conference room, which is also pretty cool. Yeah, and then the trustee weekend, we're going to do our best. They should be done by then, but they have a lot of setup, and we don't know if that'll be able to be adjusted to us. That's just a quick update on location stuff. If you are not on the roster, if you're not on like roll call, if you could tell us your name for the record for the minutes. If you share other stuff, I don't know.
We're ready as long as is Randy here?
No. All right. So thank you, everybody. Campus Council's now in session. We're going to start off with roll call. Presiding Officer Katai is not here, which is why I'm filling in. Administrative Coordinator Welch. Here. President Becker. President Reverend Becker. VPA Murphy is me. VPSA Tumbu is here. Treasurer Irpolati. Here. Ace Chair Mystic. Here. Services Coordinator Tibetemwa. Here. Oh, sorry. Constance Chair Christensen.
Present.
Diversity and Outreach Coordinator Logan. Senator Stallings.
Here.
Senator Christian.
Here.
Senator Weber.
Here.
Senator Moen.
Here.
Senator Vale.
Here.
Senator Gunidula.
Here.
Senator Jones.
Here.
Senator Lloyd.
Here.
Senator Zerdig.
Here.
Senator Nieto. Still not here? Okay. If Randy comes in, could somebody let me or just signal to us? Senator Gouret.
Here.
Senator McDowell.
Here.
Senator Herbert.
Here.
Senator Pietrasanta.
Here.
Senator Collinger.
Here.
Senator Pierce.
Here.
Senator Knapp.
Yeah.
Senator Timberwall.
Here.
ACES Co-Director DeRoche.
Here.
ACES Co-Director Coleman.
Here.
All right. ACES Outreach Coordinator Preston.
Here.
Green Fund Co-Chair Hagenhauser.
Here.
Technical Advisor Gould.
Here.
All right. Thank you all. Now we're going to move into public comments, announcements, and events. AC Welch has an announcement about Ohio State, predictably. Also, we're going to talk about this later as an addition to the agenda, but we're hopefully forming an office space committee. Please email me if you're interested. And also, the Majors/Concentrations Fair is going to be happening this Thursday evening in the JRC lobby of first and second floor. Are there any other announcements or events? Yes, Treasurer Irpolati.
I would just like to note that while it is true that Ohio State has not lost to Michigan in the last 2,493 days, the record and overall series matchup does still side in favor of Michigan, and Michigan had the record for 2,900 days in the past, so
It's now 2495.
All right. Any other comments, announcements, events? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move into the budgets from ACE. So the all-campus events chair, report on the budgets. I guess we.
Can we make that bigger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we do it?
So basically, we just had every budget, Neverland, Pub Quiz, and Barbershop at the BCC. Yeah. We gave money for Pub Quiz for the rest of the semester. And then we also are looking to see about how Barbershop at the BCC could have more, like, happen again more, because they kind of want it to happen more. So we're gonna see how that can keep going. Yeah.
All right. Any comments, questions on the ACE budgets?
I have just like a question for the barbershop at the BCC.
Yeah.
It's where they cut hair and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything like that for like long hair? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because like I can't find products for my hair, and like, I have
Yeah.
a hard time.
Yeah,
Is that anything?
Well, I can contact the organizer when I send them their funding email and ask them about long hair. But I do know that this is supposed, specifically for like subsidizing haircuts, so like it can be paid for students, so it's like 15 students will cover. But like, I'm sure I can ask questions and find.
Yeah. No hair resources in Grinnell.
It's just haircuts.
Yeah.
Like, no.
I just like, I can't get my hair cut in Grinnell. No one.
Like, that was the intent behind it, but,
Yeah.
that's so.
It's like non-white, you know what I mean? Like, I just, yeah, anyways, thank you.
Any other comments, questions on any of the ACE budgets? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the budgets from services and SPC. The services coordinator.
Hi, guys. Hey, Joshua.
It's on the same as the ACE one. It's just scroll down.
Yeah, so we had 6 budgets, one group didn't show up, so they're not on here. We have the Equestrian Club, they are here for discussion. They asked for $2,400 for the rest of their activities up until fall break. And committee approved them in full. We had bread dinner, they were a new student group, and we decided to sort of like approve on condition that we will check in 2 weeks on how it's going and review how much we gave them. Also, we consider just like how they're going with outreach, because they're a pretty new group on campus and they hadn't solidified a couple of things. They had a living room theater. There are 2 of them, because one is for their December performance where they're inviting an artist. Cool thing is this artist is gonna perform alongside students, so it's gonna give them that space to perform with the artists. The second one is just for their event in October. They just needed food for that. Finally, dropping beats. They wanted to go to the Midwest beatboxing conference, if I recall correctly. We decided to table it because a lot of the things they asked for were more specific, so they're gonna come back next week. The group that didn't show up was Cricket Club.
Are there questions or comments on any of the budgets other than the Equestrian Club? The Equestrian Club will talk about as a separate item since we will be voting on it. Any questions? Yes.
For bread dinner, is that amount of money just for the 2 weeks, or is that for more, for a longer period of time?
That's for the entire semester.
Okay.
Would it be possible for next week to have some sort of metric for if we continue the spending we've done the first 2 weeks, if we'll be able to spend consistently the same amount through the rest of the semester?
Oh no, I can tell you now.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, right now, if we keep spending the way we have, we will run out of money before semester ends, but this is a trend within services and SPC that we get a lot of requests at the beginning for like full semester funding, and then it just tapers out a little bit as we keep going. So we'll see.
All right. Other comments or questions on the budgets? All right, seeing, yeah.
Could you explain what actually the Bread Dinner Club even is?
Okay. So from my understanding is they're a group that I think they want to do it every Sunday. They're gonna bake bread and just give it out to free to Grinnellians. I think they were planning on doing going for furling on a Sunday afternoon and just giving people bread and then inviting them, say, hey, if you want to cook bread, come join us. And so that's why it's conditional on the fact that they haven't yet really figured out the space that they're gonna operate in. So after 2 weeks, we're gonna reevaluate the whole
Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to talk about the Equestrian Club budget for $2,400. I guess, you want to start us off? Or do you want to redirect? All right.
Okay, so we're essentially asking for the same sort of budget breakdown that we have in the past. We are covering lessons for 20 students for the next 4 weeks. And as that works, there's a $12 subsidy. For a group lesson, it's $20. The student pays out of pocket and then gets reimbursed $12. And for a private lesson, it's $25. The student gets reimbursed $12. So it's either $8 to $13 out of pocket that the student pays for an hour of instructional time. And then we have our drill team costs, which is a separate facet of our budget. We have 2 teams. We practice twice a week for 2 hours each practice. We have about 12 members, or 10 members, sorry, on the team right now. And the way that that breaks down is it's $40 per person per practice.
Wait, 30 on average?
Oh, 30,
Yeah.
sorry, right, we cut the coaches into 1.5. And so that covers coaching fees for the entire 2 hours, and then, it's,
The arena rental?
oh, and then arena rental is, and horse rental, so the arena rental is $15 per hour, because there are on average 5 to 6 of us in the arena, and that kind of takes over the entirety of the facility, and so we want to be able to kind of be able to compensate for the lack of clientele that are able to come into that space during that time. So that's the general budget breakdown. In terms of what we've been doing for like outside funding, we're hosting a bunch of fundraisers this year. The one that we have set in stone is on November 2nd. And then that'll be a Halloween fun day where we go out into the community and hopefully get a bunch of kids to come out to the barn. We're gonna dress up some of the horses and put costumes on them. So kids can come out and like play with the horses and paint pumpkins and I don't know. We're working on some ideas there. And then in addition to fundraisers and that sort of thing, we've been putting in 30 to 40 hours a week collectively of manual labor out of the barn. We're trying to front load that earlier in the semester when it's still warm, so that by the time winter rolls around, we're not still spending 40 hours a week outside in freezing cold temperatures. And then members themselves pay $10 out of pocket per practice to cover rental of the horse that they are using. And then they're also, of course, responsible for paying out-of-pocket lesson fees if they choose to take lessons. And then in addition to that, we're paying our own out-of-pocket costs for transportation and any sort of equipment replacements that need to be made. Because, you know, kind of have to have the saddle and stuff to be able to ride.
Oh, and then dinners we could talk about. So another sort of outreachy thing that we're doing, which isn't necessarily a bit related, but just to be like outreach. We're also hosting a weekly equestrian club dinner, so like anyone who's interested in just like eating dinner and like watching horse stuff or talking about horse stuff or life or whatever with horse people.
Or coming out and hanging out just for fun, you know.
Yeah, so we're just sending out a weekly email to our email list and having a sort of gathering space where we all just eat together and eat and watch horse videos.
Which we literally just came from, so.
Yeah.
Alright, questions, comments?
That's your name.
Oh, yeah, I guess we can go down the line. I'm Maggie Laurie.
I'm Abby Hansen.
Anna Emerson.
Molly Vornholt.
One more time.
Molly Vornholt, VORNHOLT.
Alright, so much. So any questions or comments? Any question team budget? Yes.
So, just for some background, what is the status and like what are you guys doing to like try to get funding from other places so far as like getting your team recognized as like a sport, things like that, whatnot? Can you say something about that?
Yes. So we've had 2 meetings with Ben Cooprider, who's directing the club sports department in Andy Hamilton's absence this year. And we're trying to work on getting that formed. We're working on trying to find a parent organization because they want to hire a governing body to be able to appeal to if there were to be any conflicts within the team. So we've been reaching out to a bunch of different organizations. I've only heard back from one, so it's a little bit of a slow process trying to get that covered. And then we also need to figure out insurance policies because the college is concerned that since we wouldn't be practicing on college property, that if an injury or something were to occur, how they would cover that. So they're trying to figure out if Vancouver Writer was supposed to have a meeting last Friday with his boss to discuss insurance policies and essentially what sort of bylaws we'd be looking into. And if all goes well and we present a comprehensive and itemized budget as well as like a general mission statement and go through a whole kind of appeals and process in the next 6 to 8 weeks, then they'll know if we have approval to be a club sport essentially. Hopefully that approval comes back positive. And then we would Vancouver Writer would then come to SGA and according to him, they try and work on kind of matriculating and like incorporating that budget and meshing it so that that would be transferred under the umbrella of club sports. Hopefully, they could absorb that budget by the next fiscal year, next academic year, because our budget isn't as expensive as like the water polo and ultimate frisbee budgets. However, they aren't sure if they're going to be receiving any cuts or not to the department in the next year, so they have to wait to kind of see how much of the budget they can take on. And then another thing that we're doing is we're looking in town to see if we could potentially find like sponsorships. There's a few tack stores and stuff in town, and seeing if they're just willing to like, or we're gonna look, I think it's Bill's Pumpkin Place. Since our
Uncle
event,
Bill's?
yeah, since our event, our Halloween event in particular is after October 31st, if we could try and get like a discount there, so like trying to get that sort of situated and figure out if any businesses in town would be willing to kind of work with us and collaborate. Unfortunately, there is the barrier of the townie versus college kind of dichotomy, but we're working on that.
Yeah, and that's part of what our fun day in November is going to be, is to build that relationship up with the town, because I'm assuming you all know the college doesn't have the best relationship with them. So it's going, of course our event will be open to everybody on campus, but it's mostly geared towards the community, and that's our goal.
And small children, because I mean, I get excited about horses and costumes, but I feel like 6-year-olds do a little bit more so than like the average, like, I don't know, 20-year-old.
Other questions, comments? All right.
I have another question.
Oh, then-
Can you speak to like any other clubs which have had kind of the difficulty to become a club sport as you guys have, or do you know about anything about this process besides your own experience?
So, according to Vancouver Writer, it wasn't that difficult to get the water polo and ultimate teams to become a club sport, mostly because the process was started on like kind of just bit by bit in several like chunks and years. And another reason is that there are collegiate organizations already set up so that you can more readily join them. But because the equine industry is a little bit different, there are a lot of different branches. We have to find a parent organization with enough bylaws to match exactly what we're doing so that we're adequately covered. And the part that would be becoming a club sport is drill team, because that is we do travel for that element. Although we hope that in the future we can take people to like horse shows or like state fairs or something. As of right now, that's the element that travels. So shifting that over. So we've been doing a lot of research into other collegiate riding programs. We are attempting to talk to Carleton College and Ripon College, and then UW River Falls, because they all have, UW River Falls is a little different in that it has like an ag science and equestrian program rolled into one, and it's built into like a major, or a selection of majors rather. And then, so we're trying to figure out how they cover, like based on insurance. So, and then Carleton has a vivacious club sport kind of area, everything from like badminton to like ultimate to everything. So we're trying to get to figure out how they kind of are, like what their funding process is and what they are able to register essentially as a club sport, since Grinnell doesn't really have that many. And then Ripon has a collegiate riding program where it's just specifically that. It's not technically a club sport, so we're trying to figure out what the difference is there. Unfortunately, we haven't heard back from Ripon. We have a little bit of information from Carleton. We're working on just trying to procure more information and going through the whole administrative chain of like emails, phone calls, and then them calling me back when I'm in class, and yeah.
Further questions, comments?
I understand that this is like a long process to become like a club sport, but it's just concerning to me that this is a lot of money and it's $2,100, right? And it's only reaching about like 20 students within the school, and SGA only has like a limited amount of money, so that's just my one concern, is that it's not reaching a broader student perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, Treasurer Everline, do you have any idea about like if we fund groups like per capita in the same capacity? Like are there groups that are just like larger but we give more money, or groups that are smaller but we get the same kind of comparable amount of money? Like is there any other examples that we have of this?
Do you want to limit my response to clubs or groups in general?
Both, yeah.
We do fund certain programs and support programs that have a comparable budget share. We give an equivalent amount to the athletics team budget for the fall semester, which if I'm not mistaken, only covers men's water polo. Additionally, in past years, both men's and women's water polo have asked for like single event amounts that total around $6,000 or $7,000.
And how many
those
people
are
on
trips
these
to
teams?
nationals. Those are teams of, I want to say 10 to 20. And those expenses have been limited. I mean, just besides the amount of money that we just give to athletics as part of the club sport budget in general, I mean, those have been for single events and trips to national competitions. I mean, liberal arts and prison uses about $3,000 less than the total amount that Equestrian Club will be asking for, extrapolated over the total of the semester. ACES costs twice as much out of the SGA budget, approximately. I can provide other points of reference if you'd like.
So, yeah, so what has been the success of the water polo club, for example, the men's water polo club, when it comes to them requesting this amount of funding? Like historically?
Men's and women's water polo club, at the 2 points that they came over the past year and a half, were funded in full to a tune of $7,000.
Okay, so I have a comment about the precedence, because like, I'm not sure how I can say no to this budget if we've done it before for other groups. And yeah, that's all I'm saying, I guess. Yes, yeah.
Further questions? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just to follow up on that, like, we've done it before for the same group.
Yeah.
Equestrian Club has been coming to us for years, asking for pretty steady amounts of money. The only reason that this year is any different than any other year is because now they've come asking to like adequately compensate the owner of the barn and stables and their coaches, which, I mean, is something that I think is a valuable use of SGA's money in order to ensure that our community relationships are being enacted upon at the standard at which we would expect them to be, like as students on the behalf of the college.
Further, yeah.
I have two questions for you guys. First, how accessible is the drill team to Grinnell students? And what is your first year populating? Do you have any first years on the team, and how accessible is it? And second, how accessible are lessons to, or are they accessible at all to townies?
So, I have hopefully adequate answers. So, in terms of how accessible drill is, we have several members on the team who had either no limited riding experience, no riding experience.
Yeah, I came here not knowing how to ride, and I rode for a year, and then I was on the team. And I know one of our younger members, she's also done the same. Like she rode for a year, and now she's on our team.
As far as drill specific experience, almost I don't think any of us had drill team experience in running a drill before coming to Grinnell and discovering that this was an option for us to partake in, and another way to just like get out, spend some time with some animals, get out of Grinnell and like just like off of campus for just a little bit. And so as far as being able to ride on the team, there is an element of kind of safety, because we can't just stick anyone, especially someone who's never ridden a horse before, on a horse and be like, I want you to trot around at like a high speed and ask you to turn and ask you to communicate and ask you to do all these other things, because that's a little bit stress inducing. As far as that goes though, we generally just ask that a student take lessons for a little bit, whether that be a month, whether that generally be 3 months. The average time is approximately a semester, but that doesn't necessarily mean like every single week you have to show up. So I'd say probably it's about an 8 to 10 week sort of deal where you take a lesson every week or so in those 8 to 10 weeks, and then drill is pretty accessible. I have a lesson student who took lessons with me for 2 months and is now going to be on drill. And so it took her approximately 7 weeks. It's just essentially, if you come ready and willing to learn, we can teach you. We have horses that are relatively safe. I mean, they're independent creatures. They have their own minds. So there's an element of risk associated there, but we have 5 horses that are very, very reliable. And then we have like 2 that are in training, but we put the ones like who have been doing this for, you know, the odd ones out who have been doing this for like 10 plus years on them. And then as far as how accessible riding lessons are to townies, I teach both townies and college students.
The townies are not on this budget though.
No.
This is for only Grinnell students.
So I instruct them. I probably have about a 50-50 split between my lessons. I teach approximately 8 to 12 lessons a week. And so it's a pretty good mix. And then we also, there are 3.5 other lesson student instructors out there, and they also have a pretty even mix. A lot of the college students will teach other college students just because of scheduling issues, whereas like the townies that are out at the barn who have like the riding experience, they get off of work at like 4:35. Most college students are not going to want to trek out to the barn at 5:30 and then like maybe miss dinner because like they have to walk out their ride and then walk back and then they have homework and whatever. So we try and balance it out that way. But it's probably about an even split, if not more college students by like a slight margin.
And then first years we do.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who do you remember?
I joined as a first year.
Yeah,
Really personally.
We usually have about 2
currently-
members every year, at least 2 every year.
Two to 3 first years every year, and then this year we have, I think, 2 first years, and then a 3rd year, and I don't know what I think 2 third years, or a 2nd and 3rd year.
So.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think make a general note to not use the word townie. Yeah, exactly. Regarded as a derogatory term to refer to people that are associated with the college. Just people in the town maybe who aren't associated with the college might be a better term. Community members, I don't know.
I saw, yes. This is just a comment. This was something we discussed in committee today before approving the budget. So the drill team, the Equestrian Club is doing a good job of like finding other sources of funding. So they're trying to do club sport, as y'all all know. Sorry, as y'all all know, and they also like have the bake sales. The other thing we discussed is that if we don't fund them right now, it would be much harder for them to be a club sport next year. So I would encourage y'all to vote yes on this when we go into voting.
Yeah, I'd also like to push back on the idea that like this is too much money for too few people, because this budget exists to help the students who ask for it. And I think the equestrian team, the Equestrian Club has demonstrated a lot of commitment and follow through to this budget and put a lot of thought into it.
I mean, I can't speak for this year, but we were told the same thing when I was on campus council. That was 2016 fall. It's been 2 years, and I feel like if there's been a lot of like leadership and follow through, then it would have happened more like steadily. The change going towards a club sport. That's just the only comment that I have.
Yeah, I have a final question, because someone brought up a good point and it was on my mind. What happens if you get reduced funding and what happens if you get no funding?
Well, so the first week that we came to committee, yeah, we received 0 funding for the drill aspect. Lessons was funded in full, but not drill. And in that event, we all got together and worked probably 40 to 50 hours that week to be able to try and compensate our practice time. During that time, we did have fewer drill members actually participating. And this was due mostly because we wanted anyone who was new to come out and kind of evaluate them on their riding ability, again, for safety reasons. And so we brought everyone, we have, I think, 1 or 2 more that still have to come out and get evaluated in the next week just to make sure they're comfortable around horses and all that. Unfortunately, I personally like doing the manual labor out of the farm, but 40 to 50 hours a week on, broken down amongst the 5 of us that were out there, that's, that's a significant chunk of time, 8 to 10 hours plus, I already have another job on campus. So it's not quite sustainable with being a full-time student, especially when it gets to be a little bit colder. In the past, when we have received reduced or no funding, we've turned to essentially family members of the team members who are willing and financially able to contribute in some form or fashion. Personally, I always feel guilty turning to my family members and being like, hey, I know that this is something I've been doing for a while, but would you mind chipping in? And then that is actually how the drill team bake sale came to be. The drill team and Equestrian Club bake sale came to be, is in order to be able to provide in the event of reduced funding. And so if drill funds were to be reduced, it depends by how much. There's a chance we could make it work. I don't know if we'd be able to be open to hosting as many events necessarily, or having practice and performances as we have had in the past with the same regularity. And then I think that if we received no funding, essentially drill team would not be in existence because of the financial kind of the lack of finances of the members to be able to fund this themselves.
Additionally, a lot of the manual labor we do right now is harvest related, so we help the barn owner like bale hay and stuff like that, and that's going to go away as it comes winter and there's no harvest time. And so right now he's able to financially let us do manual labor to kind of balance that cost, but after harvest, those opportunities will also decrease because there won't be as many tasks and stuff.
Further questions or comments?
We have one other comment, if we're allowed to. And this is just in response to the general shifting of leadership. The past 3-4 years, the club has been under the leadership of our of our previous coach, and she graduated in 2017, and then 2017, and stuck around for another year afterwards to kind of to be the barn manager at the facility we're currently at. She kind of bailed ship a little bit this past spring, so we've been working on trying to rebuild in a sense. Our foundation wasn't super strong, and we're fully aware of that. All the club members ourselves were under the impression that club sports was something that we were told essentially like no, or that this will take 5 to 6 years, but that she was working on it. And in having meetings with Ben Cooprider, we've discovered quite the opposite, that she had a few meetings and then never followed up. So
that's why we're changing it now and doing what we can right now in the next 6 to 8 weeks to make that actually happen for next year.
To try and get the ball rolling. So hopefully everything goes well.
All right. Treasurer Money?
Also on that point, if it makes a difference for anyone, I'm also having regular meetings this semester with Ben Cooprider to discuss the athletics budget in general. So this won't just be a push on the side of the club itself, but also from the SGA Treasurer's office this coming year.
Further questions, comments? Yes?
I move to vote.
All right, motion to previous question. All right, do I see a second? Yes, second one. All right. You can all use your clickers. This is a motion to previous question. That is motion to vote. We will open voting, I guess, right now. So A is in favor, B opposed, C abstaining.
We're
The
voting
motion
to vote.
Previous question, yeah, this is just a vote on voting on this project. Just so you know, so if you vote A, it means you want to end discussing and go on to the vote. B means you want to keep on discussing and not yet vote.
Should be 18.
Yeah, all right, so the motion for previous question passes, so now we'll be voting again, this time on the budget, for $2,400 for the Equestrian Club. All right, and the polls are now open, A in favor, B opposed, C abstaining. $2,400 for Equestrian Club. Are you serious? That fast? Good work, guys. All right.
Absolute pleasure, you guys.
All right. And just quickly before we move on to the resolution, we are going to go back really quickly. We're going to have a vote on the approval of the minutes. We just missed that earlier. Just a quick thing. So we're just going to have the votes open one more time, and you can all vote on the approval of minutes. A, yes, B, no, C. Abstain. Oh, we did so great last time. All right, everybody, come on, we can do it. Just minutes, all right, just minutes.
I don't, I really don't.
Think about it.
They do.
Yeah, if everybody could just try to click one more time on your vote, just so we're all sure that, cool, that was it, all right? And the minutes are approved, and we're going to now move on to the resolution to suspend SGA constitution bylaws related to the submission of student initiatives, Article 4, Section 2, subsection D, points 1 through 3. Just as a note, this resolution is an action of the elastic clause requiring 4/5 of campus council to approve. And are you talking about this?
Yeah.
All right, great.
So this came out of a discussion with me and Joseph Robertson, who is the student initiative chair this semester. One of the changes we'd like to make to the process is instead of having students petition and get either 100 or 200 signatures, depending on whether they meet the deadline, in order to be on the ballot. Because for those of you who were here last year, there was some confusion in the spring over how the ballot was working because there were effectively 2 ballots. It was confusing. And so essentially what we would do is, if this goes through and we don't have to do this for the next 2 weeks, we put out a form and students would submit student initiatives to us. The committee would then vet them for like viability and applicability. And if the committee likes them, they'll make up a ballot. If not, they will give the person who submitted it 4 days to obtain 100 signatures in order to petition for it to be on the ballot. But the point of this move would be so that students don't have to go and find 100 signatures for this. We can just make the whole process way more accessible, way more streamlined, and it's easier for students to get ideas out there. And so as to get as many ideas as possible. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Questions, comments? Yes.
Is the committee just including like the senators and,
Yeah.
senators, that's it?
Yeah,
But is there also a possibility for like advertising towards like other students being involved in it, or?
I mean, the committee's open. The voting would be limited to those who are official, who are like the committee in official capacity, but the students who are can attend the committee.
Okay.
And so that's the idea behind adding a 100 signature petition in case the committee like denies it. I don't know what context we would deny it. The reason why I'm not just proposing a reform is because I want the reform committee to handle this. Like I don't want to propose a reform without being going to committee. But this would just be suspended for 2 weeks and allow us to do this.
And then also, I wanted to ask, like, how are you gonna advertise this, like, the change? Because I feel like that might, people might not know that you have to do this now, so what are you gonna?
I think we're gonna, so depending on how this goes, we'll create with a Facebook post saying like, hey, your idea's ready. And then on the 26th, we would send out a form in an all-campus email saying, hello, if you have a student who would like to submit it here. Probably with another Facebook post, kind of like double up, but that would be the plan. Because traditionally, we'd send out an email and say, hey, now's the time, go get 100 signatures. And so instead, we'll just say, hey, here's the form, submit your student initiative idea, we'll handle it from there.
Further questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to a vote. It's a resolution to suspend SGA Constitution bylaws related to the submission of student initiatives in Article 4, Section 2, subsection D, points 1 through 3. This requires 4/5 of campus council approval in order to pass.
Point of order, how many forfeits mean?
It's 4/5, not including abstentions, so it'll depend on if there are abstentions or not. So yes, this passes. So these are suspended. With that, we're going to move on to a discussion on the campus council and presiding officer name changes. You're going over.
So we talked about this last week. My initial idea that I brought forward was student senate. I received one alternative, and that was campus senate. But I'd like to see if we take the next couple minutes and see if we do want to change it, what would we like to change it to? So that we can move forward with this next week, unless we just don't feel strongly, in which case we don't have to. But I feel like medium strongly, I kind of like to. But I don't know. I don't know any of those things.
At Diversity and Outreach Committee last Thursday, we discussed the name change. I think we all kind of agreed that Student Senate was good. One reason being Student Senate includes students who are off campus. Campus Senate does not. Both are real, right? Like all of them are meant to be represented at currently campus council. So that's why we were in favor of Student Senate.
I don't know if we're discussing this now or if we're just speaking to campus council, student senate change, but what was the idea for the change for presiding officer?
They go from presiding officer to president of the Senate.
This is sort of a very small thing. If you just go with purely just student senate, if shortening that ends up at SS, and that means, I think it's a very small thing, if we do any branding with just that, that's not good. So like Grinnell students said, I think VPA Riley mentioned this, of going with just Grinnell student senate, which allows, if you wanted to shorthand it, it's GSS, which is there's no connections to that. And it's the same thing, but also we avoid sort of Nazis.
There are plenty of things that are SS that are not.
That's but there's also a lot of impactful things which, RSS. It's just that we don't want to make memes of ourselves before we even get there. Let's just not.
I was just going to say, would Student Senate encourage more non-senators and non-SGA members to come in and visit us on a Sunday? Just a question.
So my hope behind the name change is that it sounds more like a time for students to have their voices heard. And I feel like Dylan did it really well last time talking about not knowing the connection between campus council and student government. I think this kind of solidifies that and kind of makes it clear that this is a space for students to come and share their opinions, their thoughts, their concerns.
Any other comments?
So, Can I call for a vote?
We could do a mock vote, couldn't we?
I mean, you can introduce a motion.
Can I motion to vote on student senate so that I know if to bring an elastic clause next week, whether or not, because then it would just enact it, because the enaction process is kind of strange. But I'm going to motion to vote on student senate, see how we feel, and that'll kind of help me plan for what I do next week.
Okay, so this is like an informal vote though, right? This is without, you're not
nothing
asking for any real action, just basically a roll call. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do this on the clickers just so that we have it on file, but this does not carry any real action. I'm not gonna ask for like previous question. This carries no weight to it. It's just a simple like opinion poll on how people feel about the term student senate. I guess interchangeable with like Grinnell student senate. I think either one of those is those two considerations. Maybe we should close it off in like 30 seconds regardless.
Senator Collinger.
Wait, could we say like Grinnell Senate? Because I still am like kind of, I feel like we, like,
Yeah, I think
we,
generally this is just a vote on like, I guess the consideration of like
Yeah.
calling it a senate rather than like council.
but not like the SS thing, because I'm
Yeah.
still kind of hung up.
This
on
is not
that.
anything in stone, it's just the general thoughts on like name change to senate. This is close enough, we can close it off. This is not.
Oh, wait,
Oh, sorry.
Well,
Okay, a lot of people
let's not read
in
that.
general, okay, so I guess we'll see something next week potentially. If people are cool and stuff, we'll come with something real and an actual plan to vote on. Other questions, comments, discussion points on this? Any ideas?
Yeah, email me, yeah, I feel like it's weird to label something internally Grinnell, but like, I also obviously don't want the SS thing, so then like, if anyone else has any ideas for how we can move forward now, that'd be nice, because I'd like to do something. Yeah.
If we want to email you, what email should we email you at?
SGA Prez.
Hey.
Right.
Prez with a Z?
Yeah.
Okay, like that. It's not even an EPA, sorry, is there any other discussion points, questions, comments? All right, if nothing else, then I guess we'll move on to the discussion on the Associate Director of Student Activities position. Tosh, you wanted to talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how much any of us really know about this or what's going on, but it was just worrisome for me to hear that both Spark and SGA budgets are being slashed by a ton of money because student activities fee, which went up actually, which should reflect more programming, is actually now being used in part to cover the fees of someone who is overseeing us and basically like not allowing us to cover ourselves. So I don't know, I just wanted to throw this discussion out there, see what you guys think, and in general there's no real goal, but I would love it if the student government and then obviously like the student body at large could have like one sort of consensus on like what we should do about this. And I think also it's really important that the student body know that this is happening because the administration is not being very transparent at all with what they're doing in terms of hiring this new person and what that's doing to the budgets. So I think it's important to sort of raise our voices so that we at least get to know more information.
Okay, so I'd like to start by saying that the SMB has actually run an article on this. So if you don't know what's going on, that's a good place to start by like informing yourself in that way. But I am aware that a lot of the student body doesn't read the SMB, unfortunately. So yeah, I think if you're interested in promoting just awareness in general about this position, definitely sharing information. In that respect, it's a good idea.
Comments, discussion points, questions? Yeah.
Question. So, I know that it's possible for you to take specific stances on how the government feels about certain issues, but in terms of action or anything else besides that, is there any other possibility that you have to done about this?
I mean, technically, a resolution can ask the members of the SGA or the cabinet to take certain actions. It can also just be used to express, how we feel, like you were saying.
Student initiatives.
Student initiatives.
It's more of like, these things are not guaranteed to work or be persuasive, but sometimes. Other questions, thoughts? Director of Student Activities position. All right, yeah.
He just doesn't know like exactly what the position entails and is just lost right now.
Okay. Quinn, you wanna?
Can we do a vote on this?
There's.
I'm joking.
Damn, you wanna give the background? Treasurer Eric, why don't you give us a little background?
Okay, so, on the financial side of things, this position is going to cost, the student activities fee in total between SGA and Spark, $32,500 per semester. That breaks down in the same way that the budget distribution breaks down to 2/3 and 1/3, 2/3 for SGA, 1/3 for Spark. So SGA pays about 22 grand per semester for this position out of the money we would have normally received from the Office of Accounting and the CFO's office.
Yes.
And why? Like, what was the thought process?
Well, it's broken down between SGA and Spark because this position will have responsibilities that entail risk management for both organizations. It was taken out of the student activities fee because the Board of Trustees, due to the financial state of the college, has instituted a hiring freeze in certain departments. Student affairs, apologies, is one of the departments that is being affected by the hiring freeze. However, they feel that this position from a risk management standpoint is necessary, and so in order to get around the hiring freeze, they've decided not to use their own budget, but the student activities fee.
And so this would be an adult?
This would be a full-time staff member paid like an equivalent of like $65,000 a year in salary.
So not 950.
So not 950.
And Senator Herbert, please.
Realistically, is there anything we can do about this, or can we just like make noise?
So from a financial standpoint, again, the money has already, instead of it being taken out of our account, like normal purchases are made, we just never got the money in the first place. So from a financial standpoint, there's nothing we can do to recover the money that has already been taken. However, because this position has been delayed in its implementation from its initial thought about when it would start, there is a potential that we can discuss with the Office of Accounting and Keith Archer, who is the new VP for Finance at the college and CFO, to discuss cost alleviating measures for SGA in the future and also possibly cost deferral measures for the past.
Okay. How much power is this position gonna have over SBA? And like, is there anything that when an act is taking place to like negotiate like how much power they have?
So we don't know, and student affairs cannot give us an exact scope until the position is filled. We asked for specifics as to where they would have oversight over us. They said they do not know this time.
So they don't have a job description for a job they want to hire?
Oh, yeah, there is a job description. It was posted online. Is in the way it relates specifically to oversight of student government, the details will not be finalized until the position is filled. Senator Song?
Yeah, first off, that just seems like frankly bullshit. Second off, so the angle that I've come at this issue is like that I really just find it very difficult to think that the activities fund should fund this, like, because even as like a student who pays, like doesn't pay anything to go here, I'm still responsible for my activities fund. And like that's like the only money I really contribute to my Grinnell education. And the idea that like any portion of that money is going to go to a person that is then going to control have some power over me and the things that I enjoy, or the programs that I'm involved in, or the programs that my friends are involved in, that just seems kind of screwed up to me.
Oh, I was just gonna mention that along with like lack of specific details in the job posting. The qualifications for this position are a bachelor's degree.
I'll just graduate and take it.
If we can all listen up, please, Senator Gale.
It's also ludicrous that this is happening because it's trying to go around a hiring freeze. This is only happening, they're taking money out of the student fund because they can't go through the board of trustees to actually hire something, which is ridiculous.
I also think it's baffling that they haven't sent out an all-campus email saying this, saying that they have taken money out of both SGA and Spark budgets, that they have not actually tried to tell anyone this. And that people now publications face cuts based on we'll have less publications, less issues, less parties, less events. It's baffling to me that no information was shared.
Point of order, did they solicit an email talking about a hiring search about this? Because they usually put out emails for these administrative positions about how there's a search going on. Did that happen?
No.
Okay.
That's why we have to deal with it.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could do something about that, if we could let people know, just to kind of take away the veil a little bit and be like.
Job
here's what's
posting is
happening.
public, yeah, so y'all can do whatever you want with the situation. Also, as a side note, Sarah Motionross, AVP of Student Affairs, is the one who's at the head of all this. So anybody
Our
can talk
office
to her.
is right up the
Like
stairs.
SGA senators, anybody can send Sarah an email, anybody can go try to drop by your office. It's not limited to just student government as well. So you can tell your constituents that, and also it's good for you all to know. Yeah.
To clarify a point that Quinn made, this decision was made by Student Affairs, but it was passed down to Student Affairs from the White House. This was a decision made by the President's office that was then extended to Student Affairs and Student.
Further comments, discussion points, questions? Yes.
Did we, I'm sorry, because I came in just a second late. Was it established that a main point of this is in terms of liability?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just
risk
that's the
management,
primary
yeah.
framework the college is using, is that we need this person to be liable for the actions of student government and Spark in case something were to go wrong. That's the framework they're using.
And peer a big thing they've been saying is peer institutions have a selected position, and so it's ludicrous that Grinnell isn't acting like it's peers.
Point of information, peer institutions also have sub-free dorms. They make first-year dorms all sub-free, and we saw how that went last year. They used this kind of idea of peer institutions to justify so many decisions when they just aren't empirically demonstrated to be actually accurate and that these things are actually beneficial. Yeah.
Treasurer Bonnie?
Just a note about claims about peer institutions. I would caution people to not necessarily believe them all the time. Grinnell has a couple of different sets of peer institutions that we base certain decisions by, depending on what is the most convenient for us as a college to be able to say, compare us to our group of peer institutions.
University of Iowa is considered a peer institution.
In many circumstances, it considers our peer 16. But however, that is not always the case, and sometimes when you actually investigate those claims, when the administration or any group says that our peer institutions do something, they may be referring to only one or two of the peer institutions rather than the implied majority that any such statement would bring with it.
Other comments, questions, discussion points? Yeah.
So when it comes to moving on from this, how can we logistically talk about making a resolution or a stance on this? Who should we talk to? As the council, should we be communicating with Talk Shield since he brought this forward, or should?
Resolutions, just as a matter of process, resolutions typically go through reform committee. We're still in the process of taking a reform chair. In the meantime, I would think AC Welch is your primary contact if you'd like to work on drafting a resolution. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yes.
As the vice chair of Spark, I don't want to speak for everybody on the Spark board, but I'm fairly confident saying that we're all pretty much firmly against this position.
Yeah.
And would be happy to work with.
I think something that could be effective is just, like, as you said, like, raising awareness. So first of all, like, making a post on, I could do that on the current Grinnell students group saying this is important, please read this. If any SGA member is allowed to send an all-campus email about this, or even to like, even if senators can include this in their minutes, say important, please read. Maybe we can link them to somewhere where we have all the information that we do have, or maybe create like a email draft that says, that goes to Sarah Motion Notes, is that what you said? That just says, hey, this is my name, I want to know more about what this position is doing, why is this money being taken out of student activity, please let me know. And if like she gets even 15, 20 of those emails, she has to realize that people want to know and that they have to probably send out a campus email or at least hold a session explaining why they're doing this. I think that would be what we can get out of this, is to maybe understand why they're doing this and why they have to take money out of it. Maybe it's a temporary thing that they're taking money out of the student activity fee and from like next year they won't, but we need to make sure we work on that so that that's not something that just like becomes the norm.
I just wanna also like emphasize that like I feel like this has been a trend that is happening and so steadily increasing like throughout like the past like 4 or 5 years. No, 8 years. I think that the administration has steadily like been slowly trying to take over like different parts of campus that are run by students in terms of like mitigating risk. When we talk about like alcohol policy, laws, like policy, like all these different things that like they considered as like problematic and wanted to get rid of. And so I think that we also need to take this very seriously in the sense that like they could possibly like literally have an adult in our offices like checking in on us over our shoulder, like watching everything we do. So like, you know, put it out there and worry about it.
Further questions, comments, discussion points at all? All right, well, very productive discussion, thank you all. And with that, we will move on to the confirmation of Senator Amanda Weber as SGA Assistant Treasurer for 2018-2019 and SGA Treasurer 2019-2020. And Quinn will be starting us off there.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Quinn.
So Senator Weber is a second-year English and Russian double major from Minnesota, and after having served with excellence as a senator for the spring semester last year for Jamaland, she was chosen by OCO as their representative once again this semester. A dedicated member of SGA on both STI-Fund and all-campus events committees, she has truly shown her passion for making Grinnell and student government a better place. Currently an admissions guide, web editor for the S&P, and a member of the team at Saints Rest, Amanda's experience with our community showcases her ability to serve as a representative of the student body at the high level expected of cabinet members. Further, her time with the Tubman Center and Mid-Iowa Community Action speak to a high degree of organizational ability and discretion, as well as a dedication to the values of service, social justice, respect, and integrity, all of which are at the core of SGA and more specifically the Treasurer's Office. Possessing all of the qualities of a model Grinnellian and an excellent treasurer, it is our pleasure to bring forth her candidacy to serve as the Assistant Treasurer for the remainder of this year and to be the SGA Treasurer for the 2019-2020 academic year. If anyone has any questions for either the Cabinet or Senator Weber, we would ask that you ask them now.
Questions? Yeah.
So obviously can't hold both positions at the same time, right? So what does that process look like?
It would be an immediate resignation.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just be like by constitutional, just like,
And
pretty much just done, yeah.
Okay.
there would be a special election for an off-campus college-owned senator.
Okay.
I saw another hand in the back, right? No, yeah?
I have a question. Amanda, or Senator Weber, what experience do you have like working with money? Like I know you do student organizations, but like what specifically?
Yeah, so, to be perfectly honest, I've never served as like a treasurer before. I mean, like, in high school, I did stuff with money, like, I know we don't want to talk about high school, I don't really want to go there. But, I will say that I'm like probably one of the more type A people you will ever meet. Like spreadsheets are my shit. So, I mean, yeah, I have a lot to learn. I freely admit to that. But I do really value organization and stuff, and I do have experience with budgeting, just not like here.
Other questions, comments? All right, I guess I'll let Chelsea step out for a sec. And then we'll do any other questions or comments before moving on.
So if like, this doesn't happen and there's no other treasurer, like, was this, like, did nobody want to be assistant treasurer? Or does somebody, like,
Speak to that. So at the end of last year, I was appointed as the assistant treasurer for the 18-19 academic year this year, and was to assume the office of treasurer for the 19-20 academic year, after having served a year under Treasurer Shake. However, Wise had to step down from his position as treasurer at the beginning of this academic year. Part of the responsibilities of the treasurer's office is that the assistant treasurer assumes the office of treasurer as a result of the vacancy. And so I was given that job starting on the 1st of this month. And then we just had to go through another hiring process for a replacement.
Any questions yet?
What was the hiring process? It was on Handshake, wasn't it, in the position?
It was on Handshake, and the Handshake directed to a Google form. So, yeah. Yes, yeah, we sent out a couple of all-campus emails. We asked the SEPCs to send out emails, posts on Facebook. We extended the deadline to encourage participation, and we received a record number of applicants for the position.
Were there interviews?
Yes, interviews were held with 5 candidates.
Other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the vote. The confirmation of Senator Amanda Weber to be Assistant Treasurer for 2018-2019 and Treasurer for 2019-2020. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstaining. We're only looking for 17 because of Amanda's vote.
This is not voting to vote,
This is the actual vote, yeah. Since there was no further comments, we just moved straight into the vote on the confirmation. Requires 2/3 approval. We're looking for one more. If everybody could please just click one more time, make sure. All right. And it is approved. And Amanda Weber is confirmed. All right. All right, congratulations, we have an AT. And with that, we'll be moving on to the next item, which is talking about the ad hoc committee on the office space to work with the $2,500 budget that you all approved for it last week. And it would include a few members of cabinet, at least 2 senators, and then other interested people. Anybody who, it will be about a 10-week schedule for this until the end of the until the end of the semester, as committees will be in any ad hoc committee. And yeah, anybody who shows up regularly will be able to vote on actual purchases that will be happening later on in the committee date. Are there any questions about this? Comments? Yeah. I see a motion to previous question from AC. Well, do I see a second? Senator Timberlaw. Good work on that. Real quick. All right. And we'll open up the votes. This is just the motion to previous question. Just the vote before voting on the committee. Oh, you're not a senator. Yeah, so it's 17, so that's good.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done with senator now. All right, and the motion to previous question is approved, and now we will vote on the formation of the ad hoc committee to control the $2,500 budget for the SGA office space. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstaining. committee is formed. Thank you all very much. If you are interested in being a part of this, please email me. We will need at least 2 senators, as with any ad hoc committee. Thanks. With that, we will move on to the cabinet reports. They are written. We'll start with the oral report from President Becker.
Yeah, I was sick and not in Iowa last week, so I had to send this.
Treasurer, we're going to do all the reports and then questions on any of the reports at the end. Treasurer Clay.
Yeah, I spent most of my week hiring the new assistant treasurer, resolving issues with SGA property and the SGA credit card, and I went to committees, processed some receipts, made some purchases for SHIC. We had our regular CAB and Wisconsin Kington's meetings, and I had a couple of meetings with the people from accounting and also emails with them, both in terms of getting the card, meeting people down there, and also polishing the budget that was presented to you all last week, so that it is in a format that accounting can process more easily.
All right, and Concerts Chair Christensen.
Yeah, we had our first 2 concerts this week, and they were awesome. We had really good turnout. It was a lot of fun. The green room is still moldy. We're using Bob's as our green room in the meantime. I was going to say one more thing. Yeah, we'll just go with that. Thank you.
Please, Trubisky.
I'm reading my to-do list that I had for the week. So I wrote emails, I did office hours, made reservations for events, Facebook events, I met with hosts. We're gonna try and do a pumpkin carving event for aces/possibly other people. We will see. I should know about that. Thank you.
All right. Services Coordinator to Demo.
Fall Fest is coming up. Prime Fall Fest. We're having a takeaway hunger event. Met with Department of Student Affairs to go over some new ideas for managing student orgs, because I bet none of you know where the student org list is and how that's maintained. And yeah, just went to community and stuff.
All right, are there any questions on any of the reports, written or oral?
We will not be doing oral reports in the future. I'm just going to go now.
Unless you want.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, seeing none, the last item is the motion to adjourn. Do I see a second? Right. And all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All those in favor, aye. Thank you for adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Very productive council. You're all awesome. Really good voting. I want to have freshman voting. You can put your name tags back to back.